Welcome to Training Specialists. In this module, we're going to review some of the questions you can expect during an actual interview when you're applying for a job as a QA analyst. So one of the questions you can be expected to answer is, why does software have bugs? Okay, so whenever you ask any sort of questions during an interview, you want to keep your answers short and to the point, right? Try to answer the questions being asked. So the answer to this question is, software development and is a process which is prone to human errors. Okay, people make mistakes. SDLC is a long and complicated process, and it can take months or years to complete. And in this process, there could be errors at several stages. For example, the business analyst can make a mistake when gathering a requirement in the FRD, or the developers can make a mistake when they're coding the application, so that bugs can get introduced into the application at several points. Okay. So the next question they might ask is, what are the benefits of testing? Or a variant of that question would be, what will happen if we launch the application without testing? Okay, so when they ask you this question, be prepared to explain the benefits of testing. Okay, so if a system or application is not tested properly, what can result is a loss of revenue. Okay, so if on a website, an e-retail website, the system is not correct, is not calculating the correct tax rate, right? Think about how much money the website might be losing per second. Okay, so it's very, very important that software is tested, because that's tied to the revenue that it brings to the company. The second important reason is loss of time. Okay, so say for example, due to a bug, right, the code gets updated, okay, and that corrupts your data. So then you have to get more developers to come in and fix the code. So that results in time, and time equals money, right? So upfront, companies will do their due diligence and invest in testing so that they don't lose revenue and they don't lose time. Okay, and that ties hand in hand with reputation. Okay, so for example, if you have a website which is really slow, right, it's really bad, and it's not giving you the right rate, it doesn't accept your credit card information and all that stuff, that will generate bad publicity, right? And that ties to low consumer confidence, which ultimately results in lower sales. Okay, so it's the testing is tied very, very, very closely to the reputation of the website. Okay, and to an extreme level, right? To an extreme, it also results in injuries or death. Okay, think about, for example, medical manufacturers, right? People who make pacemakers, right? That those systems have to be tested absolutely in depth, right? There's also regulations by the government, because if there's malfunctions in the system, right, there could be injuries, there could be deaths, and that would result in lawsuits as well, right? So litigation. So you see on the news when there's malfunctions, companies are being brought to court. So that's why upfront companies will invest in the testing team, right? And they will test so that they can shield themselves from all these issues. So once again, loss of revenue, loss of time, reputation, and damage. Okay, and what you're seeing on screen are some examples of injuries, death, and lawsuits which can result when a system is not tested properly. Okay, so you can read through this. Okay, I'm not going to go into in depth, but in case you want to bring that up in an interview, feel free to pick one of the examples. For example, you can say in 1996, right? There was a bug which credited the bank accounts of 823 customers, and that whole mess. Okay. So the next question they can ask you is, what is the difference between QA and QC? Okay, quality assurance and quality control. Or another variation of that question will be, what is the difference between verification and validation? So when they ask you this question, right, you should be ready to discuss what you're seeing on screen right now. The difference between quality assurance, which is verification, versus quality check, which is validation. Okay, so the first difference is quality assurance or verification is process oriented, so it's looking at the entire process, whereas quality check or validation is looking at the end product. Okay, it's looking at the final system or the final application once it's built, whereas QA is looking at the process which brought us to that end result. Okay. The next thing is, if you think about QA as answering the question, we are trying to find out if the product is being built the right way. So once again, it goes to the process. Are we using the correct process? Whereas in quality check or validation, we are doing it after the fact. So did we build it right? So once the product is finished, was it built correctly? Whereas QA is looking at it as it's being built. Are we using the correct process? The next item you could discuss is that QA is done to improve the development and test processes so that defects do not arise while development. Once again, we're looking at the process, right? We're trying to see what are some of the things that will give rise to defects. So we look at that from an overall process point of view, whereas in quality check or validation, we're only trying to identify the defects after development and before release. So we're looking at the final product. We're not looking at the process when we are doing validation. Okay, so very, very important to keep in mind that QA or verification, it focuses on defect prevention. We're trying to make sure the defect doesn't arise. Whereas in quality check or validation, remember, we already have the product in our hand. We're trying to find the defects in the system, which is already built. Okay. Also, the QA team, right, will focus on creating the templates for you for the test plans. They will also define the tools, load runner, QTP, and also implement the standard and guidelines to be used in the process. Okay. Or also they will provide you the training you will need to be able to do your job as a QC analyst, right? So for example, if you need training for the load runner, they will facilitate that for you, okay? And they will also build checklists, and they will be responsible for the whole auditing process, right? So they will audit your work, right? So they're the ones making sure you're doing things the right way, okay? Whereas part of the validation team or the quality check team, right, you will have all these templates in front of you, right? You will just start using them, and you will follow any guidelines that were established by the quality assurance team. Okay, so keep in mind the main difference between quality assurance or / verification and quality check versus validation. Okay. Next question you might be asked is, what is the difference between a bug and a defect? Now keep in mind, bugs and defects are terms that are used interchangeably, but there is a theoretical difference between a bug and a defect, and you should know what the difference is and be ready to explain that in an interview. Okay, so a bug is a problem or an error in the software code, okay, which is found in the application during the testing. Okay, so the bug is responsible for the failure of the application to comply with the desired specs or the desired requirements. Okay, whereas defect is a problem reported by the customer during usage of the software application. After software launch, bugs are called defects. The next question they might ask you is, what is the difference between a bug and an enhancement? Okay, so a bug, as I explained in the previous slide, is a problem or an error in the source code or software code which is found in the application during testing. Okay, whereas an enhancement is an additional feature or functionality found and added to the application as desired by the end user or the business during the testing process. Okay, so that's the main difference between a bug and an enhancement.
Visit training-specialist.com to watch more videos. Visit training-specialist.com to watch more videos. Visit training-specialist